Hey, horror lovers. Two places, two unspeakable secrets, one buried in the muddy banks of a forgotten lake, the other hidden beneath the floor of a lighthouse no one dares visit. What they left behind was never supposed to surface. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these stories, and let me know in the comments which one chilled you the most. Your support helps this channel grow. Brace yourself for true darkness. Let the horror begin. They say the lake never gives back what it takes. That's what my grandmother used to whisper when I was little, right before she'd close the curtains at night and turn the old radio on to drown out the sound of the wind sweeping across the water. Briar Lake was beautiful in the daytime, with its clear, still water and tall trees standing watch along the edges. It looked peaceful, safe even, but that feeling didn't last once the sun dipped below the tree line. When I was 15, the first doll washed up. It was my little brother who found it. He was only 7, out with a group of kids collecting sticks and stones by the shoreline during a school picnic. One of the teachers called them back for snacks, but Liam didn't come. He'd wandered off a little further and saw something half buried in the mud, tangled in reeds. At first, they thought it was just a toy, but then someone pointed out how detailed the face was. The freckles, the chipped front tooth, the exact shade of green in the eyes. Everything matched a missing girl named Emily Harper. She had disappeared 3 weeks earlier on her walk home from Briar High. The police dismissed it as coincidence. They took the doll for evidence, ran a few tests, and told everyone to go back to their normal lives. But a month later, just after the next full moon, another doll showed up. This time it was a boy. Blonde hair, blue hoodie, pale skin. Every detail matched Ryan Perez, another missing teen. Gone without a trace. By the third doll, the town couldn't ignore it anymore. Parents stopped letting their kids play outside. Teachers started walking in pairs to their cars. The summer carnival was canceled for the first time in 30 years. Everyone was afraid, but no one had answers. I had grown up in Briar Lake my entire life. The kind of town where everyone knew each other's business, where the gas station owner used to coach your little league team, and the diner waitress remembered your milkshake order from when you were 10. But after the dolls started showing up, things changed. You could feel it in the way people looked at one another, more suspicious, more guarded. Like any one of us could be the reason those kids were vanishing. I started keeping notes. Not officially, of course. I wasn't some investigator or journalist, just a bored teenager with a notebook and a fascination with the strange. I marked the dates, full moons, missing posters. I even started visiting the lake on those nights, not close enough to be stupid, just enough to watch. And on one particular night, I saw something. It was just after midnight, and the moon hung high, casting this silver glow over the water. I sat on the ridge above the boat docks, hidden behind some bushes. The water was still, until something broke the surface. It was a rowboat. No lights, no noise. Just a slow, steady push of the oars. I could barely make out the figure. Someone hunched over, wrapped in a dark coat. They moved toward the far end of the lake, where the trees thickened and the fog settled heavy. I watched until they vanished into the mist. The next morning, a doll was found. Same spot as always. Same eerie, glassy eyes. That's when I knew whoever was doing this was using the lake as more than a dumping ground. They were staging it. It wasn't until the 6th doll that things escalated. That one was found by the town's mayor, out walking his dog before sunrise. It wasn't resting on the shore like the others. It was sitting upright, on a bench near the edge of the dock, legs crossed, hands folded neatly in its lap. Someone had posed it. That same day, the mayor's niece, Jenna, went missing. She was 16, honors student, never got into trouble. But her bedroom window was found open, Her phone was still charging on the nightstand. No sign of forced entry, no noise, no witnesses. That was when I realized what was really going on. These weren't just random victims. Every single one of the missing teens had two things in common. They were all students at Briar High, and they all had parents who used to be part of the same local group back in the 90s, a school club known as the Lake Watch. It was supposed to be a cleanup and charity club, but the rumors had always been darker. Some said they used to haze the younger kids. Others whispered that something bad happened out at the lake, a cover-up that involved more than just teenage pranks. I dug deeper. I asked around. Most people shut me down, but one teacher, an older man who was weeks from retirement, finally told me what he knew. There was a girl, he said, back in '93. She was quiet, odd. They bullied her relentlessly. One day she stopped coming to school. Her parents said she ran away. But the lake had a different story. He wouldn't say more. But that night I had a dream, not like a regular nightmare. This felt different, too vivid. I was standing at the edge of the lake, and there was a doll sitting at my feet. It looked like me. Same clothes, same scar on the eyebrow from when I fell off my bike. And behind it, standing half in the water, was a figure. Not a man, not a woman, just something tall and thin, draped in shadow. It raised a hand and pointed, not at me, but behind me. I turned and saw the school. The next day, I broke into the school basement. I had a friend who worked janitorial overnight, and he let me in. In one of the old storage rooms, beneath tarps and broken desks, was a wooden crate. Inside, I found a box of VHS tapes labeled Lake Watch, 92 to 94. I didn't want to watch them, but I did. They weren't just school projects. They were recordings, pranks, dares, and humiliation. And in the last tape, I saw something I'll never forget. A group of teens standing in a circle around a girl, holding her down near the lake's edge. She was crying. One of them laughed. Another poured something over her head. They said her name, Melanie. And then the camera cut out. The dolls weren't random. They were revenge. Every new doll was the child of someone involved in what happened to Melanie. And the figure I saw in the dream, whether ghost or human, was carrying out justice, one full moon at a time. The last doll appeared just last month. It looked exactly like Liam, my brother. He hadn't told anyone this, but he started seeing someone online, a girl named Mel. She'd said she used to live in town, that she had family buried here. I begged him not to meet her. He didn't listen. Now he's gone. And the lake took him. They thought what happened in '93 would fade away. But the lake never forgets. It just waits. And now, one by one, it's collecting what it's owed. They found him barefoot, soaked to the skin, sitting at the base of the cliffs. No shoes, no coat, just bloodied socks and an empty stare aimed out toward the sea. He wouldn't speak at first, wouldn't move either. The rescue crew thought he was in shock until he whispered 3 words. It came back. The man's name was Thomas Bell, 46 years old. He'd spent the last 10 months stationed at Beacon's Point, the old lighthouse that stood crooked and crumbling on the edge of the North Atlantic. Most people forgot it was still in use. There had been 4 men working that rotation. Only Thomas came back. They pulled the logs, talked to his family. No history of violence, no signs of instability. A decent worker by all accounts. But whatever happened out there, it unraveled something in him. His story didn't match what the investigators found later. Because Thomas said the killer came from the sea. But what was buried under the floor told a different story. The assignment was supposed to be routine. 4 men, 4 months, 1 lighthouse, no visitors. That's how it always went at Beacon's Point. The Coast Guard rotated small crews in and out, with strict supply drops and no contact with the outside world besides a two-way radio. It was meant to be boring, peaceful even. The other men were George Halley, the senior keeper, nearing 60, gruff and weathered but reliable. Then there was Paul, the mechanic, early 30s, former Navy, and Simon, barely 21, just out of his apprenticeship. Bright-eyed, naive, they arrived in February. By mid-March, the radio transmissions stopped. When the supply ship finally made it through the rough spring waters in early May, the tower looked empty. No one came out to meet the crew. The upper windows were blacked out with what looked like tar. The smell hit them before they even docked. Something sour and thick, like rot mixed with salt. That's when they found Thomas, down at the bottom of the path, sitting in the mud, whispering the same thing over and over. It came back. It came back. At first, everyone assumed it was a storm. Maybe the generator failed. Maybe someone fell or got sick. It wasn't unheard of. But the deeper they searched the lighthouse, the less that explanation made sense. They found Simon first. What was left of him anyway. He was in the kitchen, face down in a pool of blood, knife still clutched in one hand. Not self-inflicted. The angle was wrong. The wound too violent. He'd been stabbed from behind, multiple times. Paul's body turned up in the storage shed. His neck was broken. Looked like he'd been pushed down the stairs. Hard. George wasn't found at all. Not at first. The strange part was how little damage there was to the rest of the lighthouse. No signs of struggle upstairs, no overturned furniture, no smashed doors, just the bodies, and something strange under the floorboards. One of the investigators noticed scratch marks near the pantry. Beneath an old rug, the boards were pried loose. Underneath was a hollowed-out space lined with oil-stained canvas and bones. Human bones. Long buried. Too old to belong to the current crew. That's when the whispers started. Not from Thomas, but from the townsfolk. The ones who remembered the lighthouse before the new crews, before the modern rotations. People who remembered a different story, a forgotten one. Back in 1951, 4 keepers vanished during a winter storm. No one ever found their bodies. The lighthouse was boarded up for a decade, declared unsafe. The official report blamed structural damage, but locals said otherwise. There were rumors of a pact. 4 men, same as now, but they weren't strangers like today's crews. They'd grown up together, fought in the war. Some believed they made a deal out there, something dark, something to keep them rich in the post-war years. Shipments would go missing, wrecked boats found nearby with no survivors. Then the storm started. People swore they heard screaming from the cliffs long after the last signal came through. By the time anyone reached the tower, it was empty and sealed from the inside. Thomas didn't say much when questioned, but after 3 days in a locked ward, he began to talk. His story never changed. He said the others had started acting strange a few weeks in. George was hearing things in the fog. Paul wouldn't sleep. Simon claimed someone was moving around in the cellar at night, someone they hadn't brought with them. Thomas didn't believe it, until he saw it. He described a figure, tall, soaked, wrapped in dark canvas. No face, no voice, just water pooling wherever it stood. It came to the edge of the bunk room and watched. That was the first night someone went missing. He said George disappeared while cleaning the upper lens room. No sound, no struggle, just gone. Thomas and Paul searched for hours. By the next morning, Simon was dead. Then Paul, and Thomas ran. The autopsies confirmed foul play, blunt force trauma, deep lacerations. But what disturbed the coroner most was the old scar tissue found on Paul's torso, burn patterns, ritualistic in shape, likely made decades ago. Same with the bone fragments beneath the floor. All male, all from the 1950s, and all bore the same burn scars. The lighthouse hadn't just been home to something evil, it had been fed something evil. No charges were ever filed. There wasn't enough evidence to prove Thomas had done it. No fingerprints on the knife, no blood on his clothes, no clear motive. He was released under psychiatric care and moved inland, but 6 months later he disappeared from his room. All they found was a trail of seawater leading to the window. Some say the lighthouse is cursed. Others believe the sea claimed them all, and Thomas was just the last one to surrender. But the groundskeeper who oversees the place now swears he hears footsteps above his cabin when it storms, and sometimes, when the fog gets thick, you can see a figure standing at the top of the tower, staring back inland.